Today's video is a very special video because it's Christmas decorating time! I've got my Christmas tree earrings on and I'm ready to get out my own Christmas tree. Also in this video, I'm gonna be showcasing a lot of the handmade decorations that I have made in preparation for the Christmas season because I have so many things that could be Christmas decorations and more is better when it comes to Christmas in my opinion. So I'm gonna be trying to share and explain how I made a lot of things, and I have tried to not purchase anything new for this video so that I'm just using what I have, so that they're just things that maybe you have around already, like me, if you are a craft hoarder like I am. Here we go. So I've never seen this tree. My husband and I bought it after Christmas last year because I wanted to decorate a tree, and we bought it in January because they're really cheap, and this is the first time I'm getting out of the box and I hope I don't hate it. So we'll see. It's been living in the garage for almost a year now. Okay, no, it's gonna get better because I haven't like separated the branches at all, but this is like the most Charlie Brown Christmas tree ever. A stool because I am too short. My grandpa actually made this stool. Kenneth. I don't think it translates well on camera, but this is probably the first time in my life that I've ever said this looks better than it did on the box. So the first handmade item that I want to kind of showcase is actually the only one that I haven't made yet, because I needed my tree out to be able to measure it because I'm making a tree skirt. I saw this idea a while ago of making a tree skirt that looks like this, but I can't remember where I saw the picture and I can't find it anywhere, so I'm just gonna try and explain my vision. So I've got all these bright color Christmas fabrics. Most of them are from Joann's clearance Christmas sale last year, but a couple are secondhand. I'm gonna be taking them and cutting them into petal shapes to make a circle with a petaled edge. Okay, so I took my measurements of how I want it to fit around the base of the tree. I don't know how this is gonna work out. I don't make circles very often, but I'm gonna try and make a singular pattern piece out of parchment paper and just cut all my pieces that shape. And then I will cut one big shape out of, I just have white cotton for the background or for the underside of it, and then I'll use binding around the edge to connect the inside and outside edges. I realized very quickly when doing this project that having so many busy prints next to each other was going to be way too much to visually look at. So I started intermixing. I have a lot of solid cotton scraps. So I started trying to intermix those and do just some really basic little techniques of piecing them together, which was a super fun way to use all the random scraps that I have laying around of just cotton solids. This is what a quarter of the tree skirt finish looked like, and here's the whole thing. I really, really love it. I think it is so pretty and colorful, and this is the closest I could get to laying it out flat because I don't have any floor space that it'll actually lay under except for the actual tree. Now, when I got this finished, the next step was the backing, and it was a beast. I did not have fun with it. My original plan, like I said, was to cut it in one big piece, but I don't have any wide cotton, so I don't know why I thought that was an option. I only have the regular 45-inch width cotton, and so obviously that was not gonna work. So I started folding my tree skirt in half to see how big of a piece I could get, and I kept folding it in half until the widest I could get with my fabric folded was 2 pieces, which means I would have to cut 10 of those to be the right size. And so I started trying to figure that out, and it was just getting so tricky trying to get the exact correct shape and make sure I have the right seam allowances in the right places, but then I got rid of them in between the 2 pieces that are sewn together. I was really scratching my head about it. I'm not a quilter, and I'm sure if you are a quilter, it is completely obvious that I am not a quilter, but I was trying my best. What I ended up doing, because it just seemed to make the most sense to me, was cutting out 20 separate pieces to match the 20 pieces on the front and just constructing it in the exact same way. I know it's not perfect because ideally you don't want a ton of seams in your backing, but it's the only thing I could come up with. And it's the only thing that I felt like would use my fabric in the best way because those petal shapes were just so strange. It was really hard to piece them together. Then all I had to add was the binding. So I stitched together around the center and outside edges and then added binding to all of those. I will say another part that I really struggled with was that petaled edge and adding binding to that. I knew that that would add so much to the look of it, so I absolutely wanted to add binding, but I've never done an inverted corner like that. I've always done the outer corners, and those make a lot of sense to me. The inverted ones I had a lot of trouble with, but overall, with a little ironing and some top stitching, I feel like it turned out really good. I really love it. I feel like it is really bringing my whole aesthetic together and added so much colorfulness to the tree and made me really excited about decorating. So I wanted to get right to it. And this brings us to my first craft that I made this year, which is these Puffy Balls. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I have a ton of leftover tulle from just other various random crafts that I wanted to use. So I'm essentially just making big pom-poms out of them. All you have to do is find any rectangular object that is about the width that you want your puffy ball to end up being. And you're just gonna take your tulle and wrap it around a bunch of times until it feels really bulky and big. Now, I also intermixed some yarn because I wanted that color variation there. You don't really have to do that, or you can mix in a lot of different yarns. There's tons of variations you can do with this. I made one that was all tulle that I did different colors of tulle together, but I think it's just such a great way to use the random stuff that I have laying about because I have plenty of both of these things. Now, when you feel like you've reached a significant bulk, you can just slide it off the end, and I had a piece of yarn ready that I'm going to tie perpendicular to all the wrapping that I just did, and you want to tie it really tight as you can get it, just to make sure it's really secure. And then you go along and trim open all the edges. If you've ever made a pom-pom before, this is the exact same process that you would use. Once you open it up, it is really messy looking. It's certainly not going to look like a beautiful little round ball. So you have to do a decent amount of trimming to get it to that round shape. That is the only downside of this craft, is it is really messy in this process. Those little scraps of tulle stick to everything. So I learned very quickly that as soon as I was finished making a couple of these, I vacuumed right away, and I'm honestly kind of still finding it everywhere. So that's my disclaimer, but overall, I think these are fantastic. I think they add such a fun fluffiness to my tree and fill it out so much without having to buy super expensive, massive ornaments. And they're generally kind of unbreakable. If you have kids that knock stuff on the ground, they're not going to break ever. You don't have to worry about them breaking when you pack them away for the winter because you can smash them as much as you want and it'll pretty much pop back open again because it's tulle, it's plastic, it should just shake open. So I really like them for that fact. And also, you can just shove them in your tree. You don't even need hangers or to hang them in a really delicate manner. I think they're really good for if you have random open spots that you just can't really get an ornament to sit right in. You just shove them in an open spot and they fill it perfectly. The next craft I have is also using some leftover yarn. This one is so simple. I've just got some random, super chunky, extra bulky yarn left over. All you do is make a slip knot, and then I took my biggest crochet hook, which I believe is a size 10, size 15, I don't remember, and I just made a crochet chain. That is literally it. That's the whole thing. I made mine about 2 feet long and cut off the end, weaved in the ends, and then you just tie it into this lovely little bow, and that's it. These probably took me maybe 5 minutes a piece, and it's a really good way to use up just random bits and bobs of yarn that you have. If you don't have extra bulky, you can certainly use any other type of yarn. I also saw some people doing it with like a knitted I-cord. I just didn't want to take the time to do that, and I thought chaining it would be really, really fast. Now, what if you're saying, I don't have a crochet hook, but I still really want to do this craft without buying anything? Well, it's also really easy to chain just using your fingers. All you're doing is just doing loops through each other again and again. So here I am demonstrating how to do that. Mine are a little bit looser, but you can make it any thickness that you want or any tightness that you want. And again, still really easy to do without spending any money if you don't already have a crochet hook the right size. Now, I know that everyone has their own special ornament collection, but I wanted to share some of my favorites that I've collected over the years because they're just so special to me. Now, this next craft you've probably seen before because I've seen it a million times on Pinterest, but I wanted to make my own iteration of it. I'm knitting tiny little sweater ornaments for my tree. Now, I don't have a pattern to share for this because, like everything, I just enjoy kind of figuring it out myself. I really just did a miniature version of a basic raglan sweater. Now, I will say, each of mine turned out looking differently because I did not use a pattern, so I would recommend there's tons of free ones online. I just kind of like doing my own thing. I think the best one was this final version that I made with the yellow stripes. I kind of figured it out. Now, the final step with this is making teeny tiny little hangers, which then will function as my ornament hangers to put them on the tree. This was really easy. All I did was take some floral wire that I already had, which again would match my tree, so they look just like the ornament hangers, and a couple basic little jewelry pliers that I had, and just bent them in a wire hanger shape. It took a little finagling to get the shape just right, and you have to have something that can cut the wire, but other than that, super easy. Again, just using stuff I had around. And here's the finished tiny little hanger, and you just slide it from underneath into your sweater until you have your perfect little hanging sweater. My final Christmas craft of the season comes out of my Vogue knitting book. It started out as just this color work chart that I wanted to knit for practice, but I ended up liking it so much I didn't want to take it apart. So I just knitted it really long and sewed it together to make it a pouch shape. And I went ahead and steamed it because it looks a lot better steamed. And then I used some leftover green fabric that I had as just regular cotton fabric and made a little interior pouch to put inside of it to kind of line it. And then, if you remember back from earlier, all those scraps we had left over from both the tulle and my tree skirt, I used those to stuff the inside of this pillow. I love using scraps like this to do this because, first of all, it saves you a lot of money because you don't have to buy super expensive polyfill, but also because you're not wasting. I like to mix this with polyfill. I only had, I don't know, 2 handfuls of polyfill left over, so I was really reliant on what scraps that I had, and honestly, I really like how it turned out. The final step was just stitching it together. I added these little tassels that I made out of the same pink yarn onto the very corners of it just to make it a little fancy, and then I stitched it all up using the green yarn along the bottom, and it was all finished. Now, I think we all have our collections of things we have too much of, and one of mine is all these little Christmas trees. I love them. I think they're so fun. My absolute favorite one in my collection is this little wax one that I found at a thrift store. Now, the final step to the tree is the tinsel, and then we'll be done. Well, as you can tell, it did take me a couple weeks to get all these decorations put up. I started the day after Thanksgiving, and it's currently December 11th. I feel like every year I always kind of just feel out what mood I'm in and what kind of decorations are going to end up being put up. This year I was going for bright colors, and as you might be able to pick up on, I definitely leaned toward one specific color. Whether or not I meant to, it's hard to tell because it is my favorite color. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope this video was inspirational and gave you some ideas of things that you could make out of just the random bits and bobs that you have in possibly your own craft stash. And I hope to see you back here again sometime soon.